District. Verification of the meeting. This meeting was posted in accordance with the Wisconsin Open Meetings Law. Attendance roll call.
Mrs. Blair?
Here.
Mrs. Balls?
Here.
Mr. Hyde?
Here.
Mr. Bowman? Mrs. Boyer? Mr. Buckmaster?
Here.
We have 7. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Pledge of Allegiance. Mrs. Blair, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of agenda. Motion is ordered to approve agenda.
So move. Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved as presented. Item 2, consent agenda. Motion is in order to approve consent agenda as presented.
I move. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The consent agenda is approved. Item 3, student representation. I don't think we have any, right? We're good.
Probably won't for the next couple. For the year.
Okay, yeah, it's like finals week, so. Item
girls'
4,
team is going to stay.
public forum. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address the school board on any item? Going once, going twice. Hearing none, we'll move on to item 5, superintendent's report. Dr. Thompson.
Okay, we have Kate here and Coach Krause that we'd like to recognize. So we'll start with Kate. You want to join us up here? Biggest smile in the studio. It's awesome.
What's that?
Okay, so we have a certificate for you.
Okay,
With all of your other awards, so.
Certificate of Appreciation. The Muskego-Norway School Board congratulates Kate Spurka for her dedication, skillful preparation, perseverance, and commitment to excellence in the sport of girls cross country that led her to receiving the prestigious honor of being named the Journal Sentinel Girls Cross Country Runner of the Year. Kate Spurka has demonstrated exceptional ability in a sport with many skilled competitors. The Muskego-Norway School Board commends Kate Spurka for her accomplishments that bring honor not only to herself and her family, but to the Muskego-Norway schools and community. The Muskego-Norway School Board wishes Kate Spurka well in her continuing education at Muskego High School and in her future education and career goals. Presented at Muskego, Wisconsin, this 10th day of June, 2019, and it's signed by the officers of the school board. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You good?
All right.
Okay.
Tony's up for time.
Oh, yeah, they're all going to take.
We got all the pictures. Where should you look for? You? Hi. Thank you.
Perfect. Ready? 1, 2, 3. We'll do it again. 1, 2, 3. Excellent.
Is that
Do you want
good?
to say anything
Okay.
to the board? Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Kate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Coach Krause,
Mr. Krause.
to go along with all of your awards as well.
Okay, Certificate of Appreciation. The Muskego-Norway School Board congratulates Kenneth Ken Krause on being named by the Journal Sentinel Sports Writers Association as Coach of the Year. Coach Krause credits this award as a team effort through the support of the school board, administration, coaching staff, student athletes, and a tremendous Muskego-Norway community. The Muskego-Norway School Board commends Ken Krause not only for receiving this prestigious award, but also for his dedicated strides over the years to ensure that Muskego High School athletes achieve high levels of performance excellence. That dedication and commitment to excellence culminated with the Muskego High School football team winning the WIAA Division I state championship in an undefeated 2018 season. The Muskego-Noe School Board extends its thanks to Journal Sentinel Coach of the Year, Ken Krause, for the honor that he has earned and brought to the Muskego-Noe schools and community, presented at Muskego, Wisconsin, this 10th day of June, 2019, and signed by the officers of the school board. Congratulations, Coach.
Thanks a lot. Well, I kind of mentioned this at the Journal Sentinel. I mentioned this at the Journal Sentinel Awards night, but to win a state championship, it takes everyone. You guys helped win us the state championship by all your support with the great facilities we have, the attendance of the games, coming out to our games. Our kids are so inspired on Friday nights. We have definite home field advantage here at Muskego. And, you know, playing Franklin in round 8 this year, the home crowd that we had this year was a big reason we won that football game. And our kids can feel the energy of our community and our school board and all the people on our administration team. So thank you. It's an honor to represent Muskego, and I'm very, very fortunate to teach and coach in Muskego. We are the best district in the state. It is unbelievable. It shows in our 7 state championships this year and all the individual success, and then same with all our academic success and awards we're getting. So it's a privilege to teach and coach here, and thanks everybody for their support, and it's been a blast. So thank you.
Thank you, Coach.
Staying there for a second. So we do have another student. If he comes late, we're going to stop the board meeting and recognize him. But actually, he's on his way? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So, but maybe if you want to share a little bit, or should we wait then? If he's on his way, then you can just, are you going to leave? Are you going to get going?
We can wait. So he's coming, sure. Okay.
See what the address is like, I got it. So.
Okay.
Do you want to wait then?
Sure.
Otherwise, you can talk about it now, and then we can,
Whatever.
then you guys can.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, why don't you do that? Okay, so Austin was recognized by the Wisconsin chapter of the National Football Foundation as a scholar athlete. So Ken knows a bit about that, and so he'll kind of share with the board what an honor that is for him to be able to be recognized.
Yeah. So every high school team in the state nominates one athlete for this award, and only 11 athletes got the award for the entire state of Wisconsin. It's extremely hard to get. Austin is very deserving of this award. 4-point GPA, team captain, probably my 11 years here has been one of our top 3 to 4 best leaders we ever had. What really set him apart this year and why he got this award is we had to write an essay on him, and he had to write an essay as well about his football experience. He got hurt the second game of the year. He was our only senior offensive lineman. The rest were juniors. He was our team captain and put in 4 years of hard work, and the initial prognosis was he was going to miss. There he is.
I thought I set a reminder on my phone.
So I was just bringing about this big guy. So he's our team captain this year, worked his butt off. He broke a bunch of school records in our weight room. What's your overall GPA right now?
4.23.
4.23
should go up.
He's in a lot of accelerated AP classes. But what was crazy is the second game of the year he got hurt. It was against Arrowhead. It was our first home game with the turf and the scoreboard and everything. And we thought he might be done for the entire year. So one of our big goals this year was to get into the playoffs and get Austin as many games back as he could. And he worked his way back, and he was able to play our last regular season game of the year. And it was real motivation for our team. He's loved by our team. He was really the heart of our team, to be honest. Not only was he our best leader, but he was really the heart of our team. And then he ended up getting to play 5 additional games because we, made the playoffs and won the state championship. And what was great about Austin is when about week 6 or 7, he couldn't do any live drills, but he could stand in line and practice drills. And we did our team offense. He would go behind the offense and he would run the plays versus air. We always would film our team offense, and then he would see him behind practicing his plays versus air. And it really set a great example. And then in the first round of our playoff game, we brought all our sophomores up, and we were hoping that we could get everybody on the field that night, which we did. And all the younger kids, while the first offense was practicing versus our scout team, everybody was running plays against air, and it started with Austin. So every kid at practice was being involved, and that's the type of leader he was. And so he had to write an essay to win this award. Only 11 kids in the whole state got it. I don't believe Muskego's ever won this award ever before. We've never had an athlete get this. We've nominated people, but this was the first time. You want to explain what happened up there, who you met and everything?
Scott Tolzien was up there, and
he gave a good speech about carrying forward what we've done in high school into college, especially in a new environment where we don't really know what's going to happen. Just staying true to ourselves and what we've accomplished at our schools and taking that leadership to the next level.
Scott Tolzien was the quarterback for the Badgers a few years ago, and Coach Chris, his mom, is the one that runs the foundation, so the head coach of the Wisconsin Badgers, his mom runs this scholarship awards. So Austin's one of our winners, so it's basically the best of the best in the whole state of Wisconsin. So from Muskego again.
It's awesome. Well, we have a certificate for you.
Mayor Austin.
Board president will read it for you.
All set? All right. Certificate of Appreciation. The Muskego-Norway School Board congratulates Austin Burke on being named to the Wisconsin chapter of the National Football Foundation 2018 Scholar Athlete Team. Nominees to this elite organization must be graduating seniors who exhibit outstanding leadership qualities, be contributors to their community and co-curricular activities, and demonstrate exceptional academic achievement. Nominees must participate in varsity football and demonstrate outstanding football ability and achievement, display excellent sportsmanship, and be committed to their team. In addition, nominees must prepare a one-page personal reflection on their football experience. Austin Burke was selected from among several hundred nominations from the state of Wisconsin for this 11-member Scholar Athlete team. The Muskego-Norway School Board commends Austin Burke for his accomplishments that bring honor not only to himself and his family, but to the Muskego-Norway schools and community. The Muskego-Norway School Board wishes Austin Burke success in his future endeavors and career goals. Presented at Muskego, Wisconsin this 10th day of June and signed by the officers of the school board. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You good with that?
Actually, we need to-
All right, good.
So they're looking group. All right, here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Be one with just coach, right?
Got it?
Just a coach, Chris.
One with Austin.
Oh,
Oh,
That's
yeah.
yeah, we'll get one.
We'll get one.
Yeah, we'll get one. Well, you should get one for you too as well.
All right, here we go. 2, 3. Got that too.
Got to get one with you, Coach. Sorry. It's like you're just going to have to get this, all right? All right, so.
Okay, here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Thanks, Coach. Congrats again.
Couple things here in Austin, too. I forget, failed to
Congrats
mention.
again.
Where are you going to
Great.
school next year?
Madison.
What are you studying?
Kate, congratulations again. That was awesome.
And
Okay.
he also was
Lisa.
selected to play in the Wisconsin Football All-Star Game, which also is very hard to do. He's one of only 40 players from the southeastern part of the state. Played offensive line. He's not a 300-pound guy, he's a 200-pound kid, so he'll be the smallest lineman, but he was so it's a huge honor for our high school to get representation, so really well-deserved honor for him, so. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so continuing on with the superintendent's report, we're also very proud to announce to the board and the community that Muskego High School was the recipient of the Classic A Conference Sportsmanship Awards for both boys tennis and the girls track and field. So outstanding efforts. We'll have the girls track and field title winners and the boys first and second place relays here on July 15th, just so you know. Congratulations again to them on their outstanding efforts at state and results at state. The girls soccer will be going to state this weekend, so their first game is Friday at 11 a.m. at Elon. So hope for good weather. So the next item on the superintendent's report is just on behalf of the board and of the administration and the entire school community, we want to just make note of the tragic accident that occurred on Friday evening, which resulted in the death of Trevor Hampton, who was a senior here at Muskego High School. And so, of course, our hearts go out to the family members and friends of that family, and that our deepest condolences are go out to them. So it was very difficult for our community, and we did have additional support services for our staff and for our students today at Muskego High School. And then the last item is our contributions to the profession, and that ends the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Moving on to item 6, other reports. President's report, I have 2 items here. So at the last, I attended the CISA 1 open forum, and Tracy was unable to attend. And Muskego Norway School District won a seat on the Board of Control for 2 years. So I am making it official that I am vacating myself from that seat and placing Tracy Blair into that seat. So we now have a genuine voice on the WASB as Mr. Hyde has, and on Tracy Blair for our CISA 1. So
let me get this straight. You voted yourself on, or they did?
no, they did, yeah. With the understanding, though, that, well, the understanding was, I made the case that I know someone who would definitely want to, I mean, they gave such a great presentation on pathways, and they listed nursing as one that they're having challenges with, and I'm thinking, my oh my, do I know someone who would fit this bill?
So when you
So-
stood up, you said, "Hi, I'm Tracy Blair. The reason I would like to be..."
It goes to the district. The district.
Correct, yeah, so it's 2 years, so it's good.
No, but it is
Yeah,
very
so we have
That's
it.
how the way you did it, though.
Well, you know.
Pretty good.
Nice job.
You see opportunity, you grab it, right? So anyway, and then second thing is many thanks to Ryan McMillan, Todd Irvine, and the staff at the high school, and anyone else that was involved in that Scholar Athlete, the inaugural event. It was a fantastic event to recognize these young students for just that, I mean, the 3.5 GPA, and to be involved in sports. And there were individuals there carrying 4.0s in 3 sports. It was just incredible. So many thanks to that, just to further recognize all these achievements. So thank you.
And super
So-
efficient, right?
It was,
50
yes,
minutes.
we were, thank you. I was just going to say, we were in and out of there, so thank you for that. I was getting a little concerned when Minister Irvine got up, but nope, he actually made it really quick, so I was very happy to see that, so. And then, yeah, so that's all I have. Any other board member reports?
Real briefly, we just had a WSB meeting and went through a number of things, but the biggest update we had was from our legislative and governance team, and there's still a lot of things that can happen with the budget. I know we'll get a budget update a little bit later, but it could be still be a very interesting month as this pans out. So.
Have to stay tuned, eh? So stay tuned, Brett? Is that
Stay
the deal?
tuned, yes.
Okay. Any other board member reports? Nope. Hearing none. Committee reports, we have none. On to item 7, resolution action items. Item A.
Motion to approve the 2019-2020 insurance policies and premiums as presented.
So moved.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The resolution carries unanimously. Item 7B.
Motion to accept with thanks donation Lake Danoon Middle School from Outsource America $1,000 for science programs at Milwaukee Public Museum.
You need this.
Second.
I think we did that.
We did?
Yeah. Didn't we? Or no, we didn't. I'm sorry.
That's the previous one.
That was. Then thank you, Bob.
Sure.
All right. Any discussion? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Resolution carries. Item 8A, discussion items, 2019 to 2020 preliminary budget.
So we need a preliminary budget going into the annual meeting. However, as Brett had mentioned, there's still a lot of changes that can occur. But what we've done is we've updated our assumptions document, which was in your packet, to reflect the changes that have been made to date. So the Joint Finance Committee has reviewed the governor's budget bill and then brought back their recommended proposals that have been approved. So we created another scenario for you to show what our next best option is for moving the budget forward based on that proposal. If you open up the preliminary budget document, the only thing, there's been 2 changes to the document. The first one you'll notice is under expenditure assumptions, right in the middle of the first page. We are looking at still.
Make sure everybody's on the
Oh, yeah.
same.
I'm sorry,
It's the
document
first
name.
item that's there, which is preliminary budget assumptions, 6/10/2019.
Oh,
Thank you.
Okay?
That doesn't matter. Okay. Under expenditure assumptions, again, health insurance, we believe that the district is in a good place as far as what the premium increase should be, keeping it flat for this upcoming year. However, we met with our health insurance consultants, and we are starting to see a continued trend of insurance premiums increasing in general. They have been, and we've been able to offset a lot of those by putting things in place like plan document changes, opening the clinic, working on our direct contracting opportunities. But we know at some point we're going to have to start to see those premiums increase, and so we don't want to hit our employees all at once with a large increase. So we'd like to just have the board approve a small increase this year, 2.6%, for the 300-some people on the plan. The total impact to them over everyone is about $22,000. So it's minimal to each person, and we will obviously let them know that there will be a slight difference in their check. But again, that just helps us keep up with trend and what's happening across the nation with health insurance premiums.
And thanks for all your work on working with our insurance consultants to get a lot of that in place. I've seen a lot of places
The
where
board has
it's still
supported a
going on.
lot of crazy opportunities, so we appreciate that as well. The next change, again, as I had mentioned, on page 2, we've added scenario 5. So this is the Joint Finance Committee proposals. And we did include in board docs the document called the 2019-20 Budget Scenarios, June 2019. Has that detail as well. But just to give you an idea, the Joint Finance Committee came back with a $175 per member revenue limit increase for next year. So again, we've had $0 increases for the last couple of years as far as revenue limit and building the pie, but they're recommending actually increasing that slightly over the next 2 years and then putting it back to 0 after the biennial budget. So we factored in those changes. They've also looked at changing the equalization aid based on how they set the different ceilings and guarantees for each district. And then the categorical aid is set to $679 per pupil in 1920, which is about a $25 increase from where we're at. So if you switch to the document that has all the colors on it, which
It's
is
the
that
second
next
document?
Yep, the second document. I try to put them in order in board docs. You'll see at the bottom, I've highlighted, bolded, and kind of outlined the Joint Finance Committee's proposal. So again, the $175 per pupil revenue limit change, as well as equalization aid changes, and then the per pupil categorical aid change. So ultimately, given that scenario, the district is able to, again, bring forward a balanced budget, and I'll go through a couple of the enrollment scenarios for you. And then the tax levy impact way to the right, you'll see regardless of our enrollment change, so whether it goes up, whether it goes down, or whether there's no change, we would still see a decline in our tax levy as well. And if you go to the next document called the preliminary budget, Joint Finance approved recommendations increase enrollment. And I won't go through all of these, but I'll just to give you an idea. So what we looked at is bringing forward a balanced budget assuming no enrollment change. If enrollment goes up, and you'll see at the top of this document, September membership This is our actual from 2017-18, our current budget for 18-19, and then our preliminary budget moving forward. So you'll see that those numbers have changed to represent a 50 FTE increase to our membership. You'll also see the per pupil increase has been 0 the last couple of years, but now will be 175 if this budget were to go through. And then the per pupil categorical aid going from 654 this year to 679 next year. Right now, we're going to assume an equalized value growth of 0, and we can monitor that over the next couple months. I did talk with Sharon at the city, and usually by August, they have a good number that we can put in there, and so we can make that modification as we move forward. But again, with an increase, we will actually see Fund 10 revenues at just over $56 million, and Fund 10 expenditures, again, we can bring forward a balanced budget. What I wanted to show you here is if we go from a flat enrollment to an increase of 50, we would actually have $72,000 to allocate into the budget.
And why do we think we're gonna go from
Those are just to give you that range.
plus
So
50?
we're looking at a flat enrollment for the upcoming year. However, if we went up or down, I just wanted you to see the difference in tax levy and budget itself.
So are you saying like the 219 would really be the 220 budget? Is that what you're implying? That that would stay the same? Because I had the same question.
I guess I don't understand, I'm sorry.
Because you have it down as 219.
Yep, the 2019 is the current year. It's the 2019-19 year. And the next year, 2020 budget.
But you have it increased by 50.
Correct.
She has 3 scenarios.
Yep.
We have 3 scenarios showing so that we believe
Is there
it's going to
another
be
sheet?
flat,
Okay.
yes.
Okay,
But
there's
we
another
want to make
sheet.
sure that
There's
we're
more.
safe
Yeah,
if it's
sorry.
below 50, negative 50
Yeah,
or
no,
plus
there's-
50. So you have a range, so we can say, even if we go up all the way up to 50 kids, which is super unlikely, we don't think
Right.
it's going to happen, but this is what we would be experiencing.
Right, right.
So we're just giving
Thank
you
you.
3 scenarios.
So just remind everybody what the 3 million deficit, the 2 million deficit was.
Yes, so part of that was the use of fund balance to finish the pool project, and the rest of it is actually the money that the board put in and allocated for the referendum project. So again, the referendum was 45 million, was budgeted, 43 million was borrowed, and so the difference was what the board allocated, and we're still paying out a few invoices yet, but that is budgeted to be the balance of the fund balance use for the referendum and the pool project.
And I think it shows in one of your documents, in one of our further items down, we're still well above what we feel we need for fund balance, correct?
Correct.
About how many? About 4 million or so?
Above 4 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, that we'd be comfortable with, yes, before we'd have to short-term borrow, correct. And so again, Eric, to your point, that's the purposeful use of the board allocating that deficit specifically for capital projects that are one-time projects. We don't always want to see the use of fund balance to support operations or anything like that. The next number just shows our fund balance, where it would be at given the current estimates as well as the percent of expenditures. So again, some districts hold 12% fund balance, some hold 40%. Our percent that we're keeping right now keeps us from short-term borrowing, so we're very comfortable with that. In this scenario, the tax levy is estimated to go down by 0.26%. And then we also show the impact of that on the tax rate as well. And the final number is just what our referendum debt levy is. So again, we levy separate for our referendum debt to pay that principal and interest payment down, and that changes annually based on the debt schedule. So this was one example, again, of the enrollment going up. I don't have to go through the rest of them unless you want me to, but I did attach what that would look like if there's no enrollment change as well as a decrease in enrollment.
We go through the no enrollment change, just because that's most likely
Sure.
really right around that.
Sure. So if you click on that one, again, all of the assumptions remain the same at the top. The Fund 10 revenues and expenditures, you'll see there that we've established a balanced budget. There's a small rounding piece right at the end, but that is a balanced budget. Again, in this scenario, the school tax levy would actually go down 0.45%. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about defeasing debt in our next agenda item, but the board does have some ability to it can go down 4.5%, or we can manage it a little bit differently and levy a little bit more in the debt service to pay down a little bit more debt if we wanted to, still keeping the levy down, but not as much as point, and we can look at what that number is in the future, but there is some opportunity there.
And can you remind me what it was last year?
If you go to the column to the left, it's down 0.02%.
Okay. So those are actual numbers.
So again, this is the scenario that we will be bringing forward for the annual meeting, unless there's something significant that happens in the next month where something's actually approved at the state level that we can make quick modifications to. This would be, we will bring forward that ugly DPI sheet with all the detail of the budget, but based around these numbers. The other document that I just wanted to show you, and we can go to the 2019-20 tax levy recommendations, no enrollment changes, the third one from the bottom. So what this document shows, again, is just a breakout of the different levies that we have. So again, our Fund 10, our general operations levy, our non-referendum, as well as our capital expansion, which is our Fund 41. Again, the Fund 41 levy, if that didn't exist, Fund 10 would increase by that exact amount. So those two coincide with each other. And then our referendum debt levy. So again, this showing a decrease in the overall levy. You'll see, though, if you look at like Fund 10, the levy has gone up, and that's because the pie, the revenue limit, getting more money per student, has allowed us to levy more. The state also gave us more aid, though, to help offset that, which is why we don't see a huge increase in the tax levy as a result in this scenario. And then the rest of it is just a breakdown of how much the mill rate is impacted by fund. And then again, like I said, equalized valuations will be modifying as we move forward.
Julie, on the equalized value,
Yes.
when do we get that number on the TIDS?
October. The final number comes in October. We usually get pretty good estimates in August that we can use. But they usually have to wait for, I believe it's like the manufacturing portion of the state's valuation.
That's
That
from the,
usually comes in
that's from
later.
the
Department of
DOR,
Revenue.
they get that in, because,
Yes.
okay.
So those of you that have been on the board for some time, where does this sit with the tax levy over a course of like 5 years or something like that? Like, has it always been this .0224,
Well, you can answer that too, but basically for the last 7 years or 8 years, we've been below, we've been in a negative, anywhere from
that ain't-
0.02 to
We've kept it,
2,
we've usually kept it,
2%.
yeah,
I
we've
think we're
usually
like
kept it.
2.1 at one point.
Yeah, as long as I've been here, it's been under 1%, and probably a little bit more before that.
Negative 1%.
Negative 1%,
Yes.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
yeah, going down.
So would that be something that you would look at to lowering and adjusting to make it so that it's that for the 2020? Because we're at .45 or whatever. When do you discuss that?
Yeah, so we could bring that back. We could bring that back at the next meeting and look at
Okay.
what that looks like, the value of that is.
Right.
You'll see when we talk about the defeasance, in order to make a pretty significant impact on additional principal, we're looking at a $900,000 to $1 million defeasance. We're nowhere near that with that difference between the .02 and .45. But what it does allow you the opportunity, if the board decides to take a little bit more in referendum approved debt, is you can put that in fund balance and then use it next year to pay off additional principal. So there's opportunity if the board chooses to do that, but we would bring back that number at the next meeting.
Next meeting.
So Julie, one possibility that's in front of that could play out is that,
That could just blow this whole thing.
well, I don't know if you'd have any idea though. The joint finance, or the legislature passes the budget, goes to the governor, and he vetoes the whole thing, in which case we stick with our current state budget. And I've heard some talk that there are some legislators that just be, okay, fine, we gave you an opportunity, now we'll walk away. If that happens, how would that impact, or do we have anything close to one of these scenarios?
Right here.
Yep.
Or what was it, which one was the orange or the?
So it was the orange is the closest to
The current.
the current.
Closest to the current, okay.
Yeah.
Correct.
because we wouldn't be getting a categorical 8 increase.
Right.
If they just, I don't see that happening, and I think most of the people in Madison don't see that happening, but there's always that possibility. We had one year it came in, what, after our annual meeting, I think.
Well, they
Shortly
had to
after.
extend the deadline for the levy.
Yeah.
And then we had
at
to
that
adjust
time.
in November.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like,
That made municipalities real happy.
oh, yeah.
When was that, last year?
No, it was-
I was
it
going to
was
say, I don't
before I was
remember
here.
doing that.
Were you on the board
Okay.
then, Chris, when that happened, or was that just before?
That was before, but I was arguing for my, yeah.
Yeah.
Said something else, though.
It was a while ago, I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the scenario 1 is the closest, so we'd still be looking pretty
We're
good as
still
far as
looking
that.
at a levy decrease and being able to present a balanced budget, correct?
Okay, thank you.
Would they consider too, within this negotiation with the governor and the Congress, having it not be as much per pupil increase? Could they come back and say, you know what, let's go halfway and just do 50 per kid, or, you know what I mean? Would they negotiate that at all?
It depends. I feel like the way that things are right now, they're more polarized, so it's kind of an all or none
All or none?
thing.
Okay.
But if you look at what the governor proposed on that colored document, it's scenario 2. And then you look at what the Joint Finance Committee proposed. They're not far off from each other.
No, I
It's
agree.
just structured a little bit differently. So, and the equalized evaluations, I believe, are different in those scenarios and would impact us a little bit differently. But they're not far off.
Okay.
I think he wanted more equalization aid, which is why our tax levy is so different.
Off, yeah.
So much more of a decrease
Yeah.
in scenario 2. I don't know. It
Don't
just
know how
depends how people
negotiations
are.
stuff
Yeah, it
are
just
going
depends how, I guess.
So it's very unlikely it'll be at a 50 or like a decrease. We're
Yeah,
looking
you
at
know.
$200, but where that
Right.
$200 goes is probably where the
Yeah.
biggest question is, so.
Okay.
So even if they negotiate and put more in the equalized aid, we'd still be coming out? Because it's better off if they put that money into the per pupil aid for us, correct? As opposed to into equalized aid? Because we don't get the full impact of the equalized aid, correct?
Well, the guarantees under the I think there's two different things. So they're looking at how they're allocating that money per student between revenue limit and per pupil. So it's either part of the pie or it's outside of the pie. And then the equalized valuation is just a matter of how much tax levy they're going to push onto the communities. Does that make sense?
I think so. But we're still, I mean, you were talking about, that would be scenario 2.
Correct.
We're still got a decrease in the tax levy.
Correct, because there is equalization aid increase. It's just he wants more going into that than we do.
Okay.
I mean,
So our
that's
tax
part of the
levy-
Joint
That's great for us.
Finance Committee.
So the tax levy would go up even?
If they took away equalization aid but put the money, so the per pupil revenue limit change takes the pie, that's either tax levy plus equalization aid gives you that pie. So if the pie's growing, our tax levy is going to grow, but if they're supplementing it with aid, then we don't see that impact. If they stop supplementing it with that equalization aid, then that's when we start to see our tax levy
That would go up,
increase.
okay.
So we do, if they're going to put it on the per pupil revenue limit side, we do want to see the equalization aid go up as
Happen,
well, otherwise
yeah.
we're going to see an increase.
Yes.
It's gonna
But
be
in
interesting.
those scenarios, it just doesn't
We
seem
haven't really
like-
seen this in 8 years. and-
Oh, right.
No.
No, and
we
now
haven't.
I mean, if they send the bills in 2 ways, they send all, because that's, they send all the numbers in one, and then all the wording in another, because, they've got some, governor's got some pretty powerful veto, rearrange stuff, so,
Only for the budget, though.
yes,
That's why they want to split it.
correct, and so that's gamemanship, so, it's gonna be a show, yeah, that definitely to watch.
Do they have some sort of deadline in place at all? Like, do they talk about like when they're?
Well, if they don't meet, they just, the state budget.
Yeah, I know we
goes
just revert to the
messages.
previous, but,
Yeah.
I mean, I just didn't know. if
Do
there was
whatever
like-
they want, the state, the legislature.
They don't have to be in any hurry if they don't want to be. Well, we all sit here and panic. All right. So I guess then at the next meeting, we'll bring forward the budget in detail. We'll bring forward the scenario in which enrollment stays flat. if we can get some sort of estimate for equalized valuation, we'll put it in there. Otherwise, we'll bring that forward as zero as well. And then we'll use that for the annual meeting presentation. We get our final pupil count numbers in the third Friday in September, the final equalized valuations the 1st of October, and then our final equalized aid October 15th, unless the budget isn't signed into law at that point. And then we would use those numbers to create a different budget that you would approve at the regular meeting right after the annual meeting.
So are you here for that all? Or are you
So I will be
gone?
back for the annual meeting.
Oh, you will?
Yes,
Oh, look.
that's the plan.
All right. Let's hope for the best.
Or you got me, and that's probably not that.
Okay, I was going to say, who's your fill-in? Kelly? Got it.
She's got this.
More than capable.
Any other discussion on the preliminary budget? Thank you, Julie. To item 8B, debt defeasance.
Okay, so again, we talked about the board, when we talked back about the interest earnings in the referendum, any interest earnings that we did not use, the board wanted to put back to pay down debt. And so what we've done is we've worked with our consultants to look at 2 different defeasance options. So there's an attachment in there if you want to click on that. So between our investment earnings remaining, as well as our Fund 39 fund balance, we have about 1.6 million that we can utilize. Again, when we look at these different options, we are not recommending utilizing the full 1.6 million because having money in that debt service fund balance helps us to manage the levy as we move forward. So we often can't control what the state gives us or what our levy is going to be, but we can help manage it by utilizing our debt service fund balance. And so we are going to look at 2 scenarios, a $900,000 scenario and a $1 million scenario, again, to prepay any of our debt. So we can't prepay debt until 2026, so essentially whatever you approve goes into escrow, and when we get to that point, we can then prepay when it becomes available. And we can save approximately $377,000 to $422,000 of interest earnings. So the timeline is listed there for you. Again, we look at discussing the defeasance. We kind of go through July. If the board approves one of the options, we would have a resolution. And then on or before the end of the month, we would actually wire the funds to our escrow agent. And then we would continue looking at our debt payments from 2020 and beyond with a new debt schedule. So the second page is the hypothetical defeasance. So again, you're looking at the $43 million bond that we had for our referendum, and that's what our current remaining debt payments are, both principal and interest. On the right-hand side, you'll see after the defeasance. So if we prepaid the $900,000, you'll see the difference in the payment structure, both on the principal side and the interest side. And again, you really don't see much of a change except for on the interest column. What this shows you to the right of those boxes then is the reduction in our Fund 39 debt service. So that's all of the prepayments that we would be making. And then our Fund 39 prior to defeasance and after defeasance. And then right below that, it shows the actual cost. So there is a cost to doing this, just like there's a cost to the bank for refinancing or anything like that. So if we looked at this first option, we'd have a cash requirement of just under $900,000. And then we do have to have an attorney, a CPA. We have all these different fees associated with the cost of issuing the defeasance. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see at the end in bold the estimated savings from the defeasance. So if we prepay $900,000, again, taking money that we have to use for debt payments, we can't really use it for anything else. And we did make that prepayment, we would save $377,000 in interest costs over the life of the bond. Any questions?
So how much of that 1.6 million is Fund 39 balance?
1.4. Just under 1.4.
And interest earnings is 200?
Yes.
We earn interest on the escrow.
Yes, we do.
So Julie, why doesn't it like jump or change in 2026 then? Like, I would think that there would be some sort of number change.
If you look on the interest earnings side, the interest earnings is where you'll see the change.
That's where the change is?
Yep.
Okay,
And then it's not till you get to the end where you actually see the reduction in principal.
okay.
Is this one time? Or can
We can defease as many times as we want.
okay.
This is just, we have money, we have an opportunity, we have to spend the interest earnings from the referendum yet this year. And so this gives us the ability to use those, and then use what we have in fund balance as well.
Is this the one that's like due July 1st or July, like at the beginning of July?
In the month of July,
Yeah,
we have to, yes, allocate
Do it,
those.
right, okay. Because you talked about that with air conditioning and stuff.
And then again, the item below on page 3 is the same exact thing. It's just using $1 million instead of 900,000, but we end up with a greater savings of 422,000. My recommendation, just because we have a number of years of bond payments remaining, and to keep a little bit more in fund balance, I think is probably better for us to help manage the levy in those future years. We may not know what the Fund 10 general levy might look like. So I would recommend the 900,000, knowing that we can do it. We have savings associated with it, but it still leaves us enough in fund balance for future need if necessary. And again, we can defease at any point, and at some point when we're almost debt-free, any fund balance in Fund 39 has to be used to pay that off. We can't use that or reallocate it for any other purpose.
So if we defease some of the monies today, and say 10 years from now, we have a situation, probably won't be most of the guys on this board, but if there's a situation where our tax levy might take a good jump, can we, at least on paper, use that defeasance to offset some of that levy?
No, once it's allocated in escrow, it's allocated for the purpose of paying off the principal.
No, but I mean, we wouldn't be able
You
to...
can't change your mind.
No, but I mean, we wouldn't be able to say, okay, we're not going to levy so heavy for Fund 39, but that we won't get as much back on the back end.
No,
So once we commit this money,
it's committed.
it's committed.
So that leads into my question. Wouldn't it be better just to use the 200,000? I understand it isn't going to be much of a defeasance, but, and leave the 1.4 where it is. Because my other, and maybe I'm not thinking about this right, but you can answer is,
Sure.
let's just say, and I know our rates, our interest rate's pretty low. I understand that. But not knowing what the future is, if the interest rate went down low enough where we wanted to refi, and we don't know if that's going to happen, but that might even be a better deal
It could be.
than having this money. I've never dealt with this where you had to let it sit for 7 years. Usually, if we're ever
Yeah.
defeasing, or if, it's within a year or two.
That's because all of your debt up until this point has been almost paid off.
Yeah.
So it's been callable.
That's
yes.
where it's kind of concerning to me, because we're basically going to tie up money for 7 years. I understand we're earning interest on it, I understand that, but, I mean, the rates may go down a point or a point and a half lower than what we're at, we don't know. And then we could have probably made a better decision by refinancing than having that money sitting for 7 years.
The one thing I'm going to check for next time with Lisa is if we want to refinance, do we have to wait till 2026 when the bonds become callable?
Oh.
And that I don't know, so I'm going to find out that answer.
That would basically be
It
the
would be
same
the same
thing,
thing.
then. It'd just be a matter of which was the better deal, which wouldn't really make much sense.
Right, and I can find that out for next time, and then for next time, I can also, if the board wants to see that scenario, we can just take the interest earnings, look at what the savings would be from a defeasance of just that.
Yeah.
And the board also has the option, if you don't want to use the interest earnings to pay back the debt, you can use them and apply them toward the cost of the project, which we've used fund balance for, and just less than the amount of fund balance. We can do it that way, too. This just created an opportunity for savings. So that there is another option there as well.
And if she tells you that 200,000 isn't really worth your time of going through this, what level would be worth our time going through this at the lowest amount, close to 200,000?
Well, because your fixed costs are probably going to be the same, right?
I'm guessing there's got to be some fixed costs.
The costs, I mean,
I don't know if these are all fixed. I think there might be some percentage there, isn't there? On how much, because I know when we did refis, based on how much you were refining, the costs went up and down. I'm not sure.
that's why they're estimates.
Yeah.
It's based on the actual dollar amount that we end up moving
Right,
forward.
but I'm sure there has to be a minimum fixed cost.
Well, I mean, just the processing amount is 20 grand.
Yeah.
It is expensive, yep.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying there, like the 200,000, there may be a minimum fixed cost of 10 grand, and then is that really worth our time to only do the 200,000?
Right.
So the 200,000, we don't have a choice. We have to use it somehow for debt payment.
One way or another, we have to
Yes.
spend it this year.
But as far as the rest of that, you were thinking fund balance. Other than it wouldn't lock future boards in, if we were to just set that aside into a separate account, so that if we do have an opportunity to refinance, we could use that money and have more of an impact, what would be the disadvantage to doing that?
So you're saying,
Instead of actually putting it into Fund 39,
It's already in Fund 30.
or I mean, into the fund,
it's in Fund 39 fund balance, and it can, that's.
no, I mean,
only-
what we'd be putting from our fund end balance, and that's what you're talking about, right?
Nope.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry if I didn't clarify. The fund balance that we'd be using is only what's in Fund 39.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Okay.
1.6 is a 1.39.
Just 1.4. The rest, the balance, the difference is the interest earnings that are.
Which can only be used.
So can
I didn't realize we had that much, so, okay.
can the 1.4 be used to increase anytime for health crisis?
Yes. Yep. We don't have to do it now. It's an opportunity.
The only thing
That
we have
creates
to do
savings,
something
yeah.
with is the 200.
Yep.
She was just saying that we don't necessarily need 1.4 in there. We could probably be okay with 500 or 400 going into the future, but I'm kind of concerned that we, again, we're trying to predict what future boards are going to need,
And can you, I just want to make sure I understand.
Sure.
How it would help us with the tax levy impact in the future. So we have to, we've got a certain projection on what we're going to levy for Fund 39, right,
Correct.
which is our debt payments.
Yes.
And if 5 years from now, or 3 years from now, let's say we have a significant increase in Fund 10, because we had a fund balance in there, we could reduce the amount we're going to levy in Fund 39
Exactly.
to try to lessen that impact.
Exactly.
But we only can do that if we have fund balance.
Correct.
And I just want to make sure I
Exactly right,
follow
yep.
that.
and we've used that a few times
We have.
since you've been here, just to basically even everything out, so we don't have this going
Peaks and
on.
valleys.
Right. It's really a great tool to have, so that's why I don't know if I want to, personally, if I would like to bring that fund balance down that far.
If we were to look at Denewman, and, because it's the same fund, right, Fund 39, over the years, was there an amount that you targeted and did it prove out to be the right amount over the years? To get that more even type?
I'd have to look back at what the levy amounts were.
Okay. I don't know how big the project was.
But I'm not sure we ever used more than, it wasn't a lot. I mean, well, I guess that's relative, but, I mean, we were never really using more than $100,000 to $300,000, $400,000 in any certain year, were we?
No.
Yeah.
But I could look back historically to see if we've levied according to the debt schedules. I know Denewman, I think they were financed once, maybe 2012.
Have we ever done it the opposite way? Where we levy more for 39 in a year to build that so that we could defease in the future, or I don't know?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so as we were talking about before, and this goes to Tracy's point, where we had a decrease of the 0.55%. If we want to make that less and bring that to like a 0.1 or a 0.6, .05. The difference in that dollar amount, we could levy into Fund 39 because that's where we can keep the fund balance.
I think I remember, as long as I've been here, I think we only did that once before you were here. We had like a 4 point something negative, and we, I don't remember what it was, 2 or 3%. We put it,
Which is probably why the fund balance is what it is.
right, we put it into that fund, and we still had like a 1 or 1.5 decrease in our levy.
Just as long as you have payments to make that are more than what's in your fund balance.
So if we find that the fixed costs are just too high and it doesn't make sense to do 200,000, and we decide to not to fees any at this point, what happens to the 200?
We would have to then use it to, well, we could lower our levy that we anticipate coming up this, I don't even know if we can do that because I think we have to spend it.
Could we put it into Fund 39?
No, we have
That'd be
to,
easy.
we have to physically use it. So what we probably have to do is allocate it to the cost of the referendum and just say that we're instead of using Fund 10 fund balance for the referendum, we're going to use 200,000 less and just.
And then could we take 200,000 from fund balance and put it into Fund 39?
You could, however, depending on where we're at the final budget, if it goes beyond where we budgeted, which it will because we're using a lot of fund balance, there would be a tax levy impact, but we can manage that because we anticipate using that much fund balance anyway. So yeah, we could do that.
Maybe that's the...
Yeah, that might be the way to do it.
Shell game.
That additional payment of $200, whatever, would that, because I can't tell on this, like what you pay a month on this loan, would that be like an additional payment on that loan for a month? Like, you know how like if you pay off your house, like if you pay one extra payment a year on your house, you can drop your mortgage down from 30 to 15 or whatever it is? What is our monthly payment? Like what if we did an extra payment every
So
year?
what you're describing is the defeasance.
Oh.
It's just, we can't, so when you borrow money through a bond, you have investors who are expecting that they're borrowing you this money at this interest rate, that they're going to get their return. So you can't prepay until 2026 so that they're actually earning what they know that they're going to get, which is why that rose in place.
Okay.
That's exactly it,
That's
though.
what-
Yep. Yep.
So if I understand what Eric said, you could take the 200,000, which is the interest from Fund 39, add it to the referendum, and then go ahead and take 200,000 from fund balance that was originally designated for the referendum, add that back to Fund 39.
I'm going to double check to make sure that that transfer is allowed, but I believe it is. The transfer is allowed, what I don't know is if you have to use it immediately.
And if it was, there would be, that would be a neutral impact.
Because we're already
Exactly.
anticipating using the
So you kind of meet that threshold. Boy, that might be the way to connect the dots.
Because then we can, for the next 6 years, determine what we use, what we don't,
Absolutely,
because we
that would-
can't really impact the interest until 2026 anyways.
I'm going to check on that. The refinance, I'm not 100% sure about.
No, not the refinance. Let's say that in 2026, when the bonds become callable, we can at that point put $1 million down if we
And
hadn't
we can
wanted
use
to.
it right away.
Yeah. So it's the same thing as if we put it into escrow today, because it can't be used until 2026. But by not putting it in escrow, we give ourselves and future boards flexibility to manage the tax levy better.
And we're talking Fund 39, with that whole thing, right? That sounds like the way, for promising way.
Is there a disadvantage to doing the way Bob described it?
The only disadvantage would be if we weren't planning on using the Fund 10 fund balance and then doing it, that would be a tax impact we can anticipate, but because we're already anticipating using it, there's no difference in your scenario, other than tying up the money.
Better check on all those. Maybe this,
I'll
maybe
bring it
that.
back to the next
Yeah.
We only got to what, August?
We'll get it done next year.
Any other discussion on 8B, debt payments? Item 8C, self-provision fiber project phase 2. I think if that's Tony, Mr. Spence.
Hey, Ryan, welcome back, Ryan, our assistant administrator. Some of you know you're familiar with Ryan. Welcome. He begged and pleaded to be here, so I said, finally, yes.
I try to come to every one.
one, but Tony's like, no. You need me to move? Tony, you need me to move here?
Actually, you have this all on your screen, so it's okay.
Okay.
Thank you. So,
I don't know, Rick is probably watching. He see that. The other two are then. He has 3 PCs as well. It was his idea to stream, so, you know.
No, I actually told my nursing students to watch tonight, so we'll see.
oh, okay, good to know. Well, everybody. So, we have an update on the fiber projects. As you know, we're going to do a little update on the things that have happened as a result of the current fiber that we've installed, which again, just as a quick overview, that was 16 miles of fiber optic networking cable that has gone in the ground to connect all of our buildings, including our middle school, Mesquite Lakes. So that extends to all entities of the district. We're also going to talk about what phase 2 could look like. I've offered some of that information to you at some of our committee of the wholes and other conversations on goal processes. So this shouldn't be coming out of left field, but we'll be going into a little more detail. We have some maps of what this will look like. Again, it's not brand new information, but as an overview, where we're at with E-rate and then some considerations. So we're going to get started. Our first is our update on the current fiber, and that's where I'm going to turn it over to Ryan to speak a little bit about where we're at now.
So this was coming up from last summer is where we ended up. So we now have serviced all our buildings with our internal fiber network as a 10 gig speed to all the buildings. And working on migrating all those hosts that were at the other buildings, bringing them into here. So we just have one central location for all our servers. Pretty much complete. I have a couple of servers to bring in, but all the hosts are actually running up here now. Centralized phone system. We centralized our phone system last year as well. There were phone controllers at each location. Now we just have one virtual one at the data center up here, and we dictionate all the other ones. Video, we're doing that right now with the video. So each camera server turns out to be like $12,000, which we just found out. But rather than getting 3 more, we're just going to get one, put them all in one, rather than having multiple locations. We've also got the Impro field. We have data up there. So we ran a fiber line out to the press box, and then I have a point-to-point that goes to the concession stand. That's all up and running. I end up adding cameras there over this summer, I believe. And as that's recovery, we were planning on just going to either Mesquite Lakes or high school. But if we go with phase 2, we can actually push that out of our district. So our DR recovery site would put us a farther distance away from our central location, which is always better to be farther away as you can. That's pretty much where we're at.
Good. So let's talk a little bit about phase 2. That's phase 1. So phase 2 in this case is to look at connections that extend outside of the footprint of Muskegon Norway schools. And so on the map behind you or in front of you, depending on how you're looking, you'll see that we would extend the fiber run along Racine Avenue from essentially the Mill Valley location all the way up to the New Berlin Fire Station number 3. We've had plenty of conversations with both the city of New Berlin and, of course, the school district too, as they are both entities that are connected. These little dotted trails that you see show the connection running down to essentially the high school and district office over to our Mosquito Lakes Middle School. And then on the far east side, there's a 1,300-foot run from Mosquito Lakes Middle School to Country Dale Elementary School, which is part of the Franklin School District. And so we've had many conversations with their school district who have run a 10-mile fiber run to Alverno College. And so in that case, Alverno is connected into a POP. POP is where all these other connections come in. And so at the same time, the New Berlin School District connects into another POP as well. So this will actually give us a full loop. For more detail, we're going to go to the next slide. So this is the connection that goes from the New Berlin Fire Station number 3 from Mill Valley Elementary School. And one thing I want to point out is that we don't actually go right from Mill Valley. There's what's called a handhold right on Racine Avenue. So it's not actually coming from the school itself on Hillendale. It's actually just running up Racine Avenue, which is where that run is naturally. So that's kind of nice because it saves us the distance of not having to go back across either College Avenue or through underneath that parking lot. And then we basically are a direct run up Racine Avenue. Of course, there's permitting and other things like that. But this is an 8,900-foot run. The reason this is a little different than the last time we were before the board is we actually had engineering done at a much lower cost, had this submitted to E-rate, and actually just recently had E-rate approve it. And so the reason that's so significant is we had $325,000 that were approved to cover or subsidize the cost of our other project. This one is roughly $158,000 that we had quotes provided for us. That was the low bid. And this would be a $63,000 subsidy to take off the top of that. So it would take us just under $100,000 to complete this run from, again, Mill Valley location to the New Berlin Fire Station number 3. What does that provide us for a benefit? That allows us to directly connect to what's called WeCan. It's basically this combination of school districts, WCTC, Carroll University, the City of Waukesha, the City of New Berlin School District, the list goes on. There's roughly 13 entities that are a part of this collaborative group that all run over a single unified fiber network. And the reason that's valuable is by connecting to a larger network, we're actually getting the benefits that come with the connection that goes directly to WeCan or WISNet. WISNet is our internet service provider. So we pay $15,000 a year to essentially go from our location here to get out to the internet. If we run to the New Berlin Fire Station, we then have a direct connection in and eliminate that altogether. The other part of that is we would increase from 1 gigabyte of internet data, which is what we have, to 10 at no extra cost. So again, we eliminate a cost of $15,000 and we increase speeds tenfold, no additional cost for that.
So we're 10 gig in network, within our own network, and only one. And how are we going out?
Well, we use what's called BadgerNet, and it's this connection that essentially finishes off our internal connections and brings it to the outside world, which is essentially to that pod. So there's a few different areas where that can connect to. But that's that little train tracks that we've talked about in the past. That would be eliminated. We would own those, and we wouldn't pay a fee to be on them. So that's the one side of this. There's another side to this, as we mentioned in the map. So once again, on the top in the north, that's where we have the connection in Berlin. And over to the south and the east is the connection to Countrydale Elementary, and Ryan's going to talk a little bit about that.
Yep, so that one is a really short connection. It goes basically from Muskego Lakes over to the elementary school, I believe it is 1,300 feet, I believe. So it's quite a bit smaller, basically across the street. But it is, since it's a redundant connection, it wouldn't be our primary outlet into the internet. It would actually be non-ratable, so we would have to cover that out of pocket. The nice part about that is since we are joining the WeCan and we go with the WeCan, all those group entities are also going to get redundancy, so it'll be their failover connection as well, which means we're talking with them now about them sharing that cost of that build out with us rather than just us just buying it outright.
So essentially it creates a loop. If you go up through Alverno and Alverno over, it then connects. So we basically have one solid loop of fiber to connect to. So if there's an outage on one side of it, we can fail over to the other. So again, the New Berlin connection just gives us a reduction of cost of that $15,000 and an increase in speeds. The connection to Franklin, which is a short run, 1,300 feet, gives us that opportunity to have redundancy. And as Ryan alluded to, redundancy, E-rate says, yeah, you can't E-rate for that. Otherwise, we certainly would have entered that information. What you can see that is this is just an estimate and not a quote. So just a disclaimer that roughly $50,000, 48697, was going to be the amount. So overall, a summary of the benefits of Phase 2, connection to WeCan, which again is that group of entities that are together. There is a fee to be a part of that. It's roughly $3,500. The more entities that join, the further that cost goes down. It was $4,700 last year, and 3 different entities joined and went down to $3,500. So you can see it has a pretty significant impact when it goes down. An increase of 1 gig to 10 gig, which is cost neutral. A redundant connection to our internet service provider in case there's an outage. We have off-site backups as an option, which Ryan talked about. And then we can eliminate that transport at a cost of $15,000 per year. As I mentioned before, this is a little bit different than last time. E-rate's already approved. Doesn't mean that we have to go through with it. That's all contingent on board approval. At the same time, we know that those monies are there, whereas last time we had to wait and see. That was because of the timing of having to build out Mosquito Lakes Middle School. We needed to be able to approve a project so they can get in the ground and dig before too much time would pass, and we missed that window. The last piece is considerations. As I mentioned before, this would require a weekend membership, not to make all these connections, but in order for us to make these opportunities available to not only us, so we join forces with all these larger systems, but then they also have that benefit as well. And as Ryan mentioned, the goal for us is to work with them to find a way to help fund that connection to Franklin. There's the IT budget can support this work if approved. So it's not to say that if all else fails, but we wouldn't be in front of you if we weren't confident that within our current budget, we could cover these costs. The other part is there is a study that's being completed that helps to engineer this process. Our partners, MC&E, that's a very familiar name that we've used both on our Phase 1 project and also now Phase 2. Dan Becker, who's been with us a few times, but also his partner, Joel, to again look at what it would take to make sure that this run would work best for our system. And last but not least, it's not the negative, or this is not to say we have to be careful, but there are ways that this network can run right around us. And then we'd be the ones asking to get connected. And so we're hoping that it runs right through us, because that would be the ideal setup, both for us and for other systems. We have control. So at this point, that's the update, the review of Phase 2 project. And at this point, if you have any questions, please fire away.
So what's the cost of the New Berlin run?
Oh, sorry, there is, I didn't reference that, my apologies. It's $158,000.
And
that is under the administrative content, is where that quote is in your mortgage.
And after E-rate?
$95,800, give or take, with the $63,000 reduction from E-rate.
And what's the cost of the Country Dale run?
$48,000 is the estimate. That includes engineering and project management.
Okay, so question for you.
Yep.
Let's just say, hypothetically, we could not do the New Berlin run. Can we hook up through Country Dale,
Yes.
which will take you to Alverno, which will take you to Wecan, the other way,
Yep.
the north end. So you get Wisnet, you get Wecan, you get 10 gigabyte. The only thing that you wouldn't have is redundancy. Okay? So how many people would be on that system then, or not people, but organizations, without the redundancy?
I mean, if we just went into Franklin directly?
Yep.
It would be Franklin, Alverno, and Muskegon.
Okay. And how is that redundancy worth anything to those three?
Well, before I answer that in full detail, I think I have the partial answer, and then we can get to maybe the full. We had looked at what our cost would be to increase our internet connection so that we could at least double it. So go from 1 gig to 2. And the cost would be about $13,000 to get there. But what that would do is call a 1+, which gives us 2 pipelines that essentially almost completely overlap for a total of 2. In the event that there is a redundant outage, we can fail over to the 1.
Yeah.
So in that case, that would have been our goal either way, to be redundant, because it is a high focal point. At this point, if the power goes out, people have patience. If the internet does, it's like, there's going to be no tomorrow.
Yeah.
And the thing is, for us, we've had 3 outages over a 1.5 year period of time, not related to our own internal network, but because of cut fiber.
Yeah. So I totally get all that.
Yeah.
All I'm trying to do is, if we would probably qualify for E-rate if we were only going to Country Dale under my,
Yes.
and so that 48 might become 36, let's say. And then, once we have it in, we ask Franklin, who else? MATC and Alverno?
WCTC, you mean the Waukesha contingency?
Yeah, the Waukesha contingency, and we say, hey, do you guys want redundancy? And they say, oh yeah, we'd love redundancy. Okay, so then we split the $150,000 between all of these organizations that are using this to get redundancy.
It's certainly possible. I would say what's happened is the draw, if you will, from those other entities to even provide some subsidy is that it's more of the understanding that we're looking for the betterment of the systems that are connecting to provide that, rather than having them be able to pay for it. It's not that WeCan maybe doesn't have some funding, but really it's simply just the fees that are paid by the organizations. There isn't any corporate backing, or from what I can tell, a large sum of money that would help offset or subsidize. And certainly the other entities are school districts. I realize they could have some funds, but I wouldn't say that we would see a significant sum, but that would never happen.
I'm just trying to figure out why we're footing that whole bill for redundancy when everybody's going to benefit from that redundancy. And if they see the benefit, maybe they don't see the benefit of the redundancy. So I'm trying to see why we see the benefit of the redundancy. And if they all see it, well then, let's all pay for it.
Sure. Well, Franklin ran a 10-mile fiber run, not because they probably would have not done that if we would have waited. So I understand that. From that standpoint, they're saying, well, if they put the largest expense, but because of Franklin's investment, we now have a much shorter run. Otherwise, we wouldn't.
Yeah, but they also wanted to get it, it's not like they brought it out to the city limits. They brought it to a school that could benefit from it also. And I understand that was a long run from Robinwood, but they did it to get it to their school.
Yeah.
All I'm trying to say is maybe we're looking at this backwards. Maybe we put in our portion and then say, hey, let's sell redundancy to everybody, not just have us foot $96,000 of redundancy bill.
Yeah, that's possible.
Well, do these other entities already possibly have redundancy? And this would just be a third?
Waukesha in general does. So it's more like City of Waukesha and School District in New Berlin. That would be the most advantageous. But again, those are two entities that it creates a loop. Whereas in the City of Waukesha, they're basically building fiber on a regular basis to their entities. So I think in some cases they even have double redundancy, depending upon where the location is. So really, it's more probably an advantage to us and maybe City of New Berlin and School District of. And so certainly there's an opportunity to ask for division of those costs. We have a new IT administrator with the city who's, I would say, agreeable to these things. I don't know how much funding they have, but I can certainly ask the question. One thing is we're motivated to have the redundancy. In this case, I would say, is it worth it to us to have the conversation to reconsider? Well, we could. We have a meeting pretty much once a month. And at the same time, I feel like we would maybe lose this opportunity, which if we build this, we can guarantee ourselves that redundancy. If we go and present it to other entities and they say no, or they don't realize it, or the timing's not right for them, because not everybody's on the same page we are, that could be our missed opportunity as well. So as much as I understand the costs, and they're very valuable us to be, we'll call it sound stewards of the financing, I don't know if it'll happen because we would ask.
Well, I understand that, but if it didn't happen, let's say we put in the Country Dale this year, and it didn't happen, well, that might not make sense either, because then you're paying for the whole thing.
Right. We have an opportunity, and they have not come forward yet with an amount that they would provide to us or to this project. So I wish I could share more money, background in terms of what we're seeing. But you're right. If we were to fail over to that and ask them then to cover the other amount, and they decide no, that we might be worse off.
Would they cover the smaller amount? Because that still would meet that goal for them.
That's what we're asking for them to do, hopefully.
For us
Cover
to
the
do
Franklin.
long run and then them cover.
Yes.
Yeah.
They can't really help us fund the E-rate side. So we thought what we would do is go to the area that the most amount of E-rate subsidy would exist. From a general pot standpoint, this is where we get the most back subsidized that isn't costing any entity any sum of money. And so if we did the side to Franklin, it would have been a significantly lesser amount. And so we decided to go for the larger amount and then hopefully have those other costs offset going to Franklin.
So Tony, you said that the other alternative for redundancy was to piggyback off what we currently have coming in, the one?
Yep.
So that would be either or would that be in parallel, so we'd have 2 gigs coming in?
We have 2 gigs coming in just under that.
And if one went out, we'd be down to one?
Basically, it's 2 internet service providers. One is through, is it AT&T or Spectrum?
Yeah, one is AT&T and one is Spectrum.
One is AT&T and one is Spectrum.
So you said that would be $13,000? Is that a one-time cost or per year?
Per year.
Okay.
Yep. And it would get us to 2 gig, which would service us for the time being. And then, eventually we'd have to be looking at another increase in dollars and cents. So
Is the only way we get to 10 by connecting to Waukesha, or do we get to 10 by connecting with Franklin?
either would get us there.
Either.
Yep.
And the $15,000 a year savings, is that either as well?
Yes, that is correct. So basically, we're looking at, if we had to upgrade our to 2 gig at a minimum and look for redundancy, we'd be at essentially $27,000 a year that we could wipe away by having these installations done to both New Berlin and Franklin. So once again, those amounts are $15,000 for our transport out, which is BadgerNet, and the $12,000 that we wouldn't have to increase for our internet bandwidth, because we'd be getting that automatically. WISNet basically says, once you connect to us, you can have whatever speed you want. It just so happens 10 gig is that next step up, and threshold.
So can you, I know, I'm just going to be very naive here, or a novice of this. Is it a conduit and there's separate cables that are
Yes.
going in? And then where's the switching that goes on to go from, I want this cable that's 10 gig and this is 2 gig? You know, like,
They all have the capacity to run that. It's essentially the hardware that it connects to.
okay.
And so basically, again, if you can imagine a smaller pipeline is what we're paying for from
Right.
BadgerNet, and they would certainly sell us the ability to get to 10 gig. It would just be a really large sum of money to pay for that upgrade.
Okay.
And so what we're hoping to do is take that out of the equation, that piece, and
Right.
make it our own. And then we get a direct 10 gig connection because we go right to the source, which is WISNet. So I don't know if that helps or not, Teresa.
Oh, it does. I was
Okay.
just trying to figure out.
Yep.
What's the weekend membership cost per
3,500 would be our cost if and when we join.
year?
Yes.
So then you've got, just to clarify, you've got 158K, you've got 48K, you've got roughly 65 to 70K in E-rate.
63,000, yeah.
Okay, and then you've got 13, so it's 13 for the weekend. However, it's probably more like 11 because you're not paying the 3,000 or 3,500, so it's like, so then you're looking at, and all this is budgeted. I mean, you've got this?
Yep.
Okay.
So you're looking at, if we were to do the redundancy, about a 10-year return on the investment.
Correct. It's very close.
So let me ask something about financing, Julie. In the past, when we've leased equipment, we've gone through various leasers, in order so that we don't get hit with one big off of our funding. If we spend too much, we lose state funding, right?
If we
The more we
overspend our
spend, the
budget,
less we get.
we'll know.
Yes. How would this impact? Would we just pay it out of the budget for?
Bill, you said you had the money.
In his budget.
But I mean, would we want to somehow finance it to save that hit, or is it not
We
worth it?
wouldn't have to, because if Tony has the money in the budget, it's already within the parameters that we.
Right. But would we save money if we did it that way? Or rather than,
No.
Probably lose the E-rate, right? I mean, the E-rate expects us to spend the money now.
Yes.
Yeah. We're going to lose 40% from the E-rate by
we
doing it
wouldn't
that
be able
way.
to finance it and get E-rate?
Are you talking if we would lease this sum of whatever the
Right.
total amount would be?
Or finance it somehow, so we're only spending $15,000 a year instead of $150? Or instead of $150 at once, $15,000 for 10 years, just as an example.
I think that what we have to think about is within any of our budgets, we all have like long-term plans for what we want to purchase. So if it wasn't spent on this, there'd be something else on the list that we could move up, and we'd use the money
Okay.
anyway. So I don't
So-
know that there would be that we would realize the savings.
Okay,
I don't
that's
think
kinda
that we
what I-
would not spend that money this year.
Okay, that's what I was getting at. Thank you.
Sure.
I know we took a little way here.
Yep, no, that's fine.
So this is on discussion. Does anyone want anything else from Tony for action next board meeting?
So you're looking for action next time? Okay. I know we've talked about this a lot, so.
So if you do have anything, please email him and contact him. Otherwise, this will be on action for the next board meeting.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Any other
So actually,
comments? Yep.
so essentially, we're looking at running to either New Berlin, running to Franklin, or the redundancy. So if you could give us a financial, just breakdown, what it would cost for each? Because I know the E-rate would affect one, the other,
Sure.
but not
Well,
both.
Yeah, the E-rate would apply to the New Berlin run, which again
So it
is,
would apply, if we only did Countrydale, it would apply to that too.
well, I'd have to apply over again in the window,
Okay,
and that was, well, that window's passed. So we'd have to wait a year, which is not the end of the world, but we'd have to wait a year to do that, because that's how the E-rate windows open. You have the application window, and after that, once it's passed, you'll have to wait till the next window.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
You good? Okay, moving on.
Thanks, Ryan.
Item 9, information follow-up.
So this is just information on the monthly financials, the personnel memorandum, and an update on the math related to the advisory period. So if there's any questions, maybe, I'm here for that.
Okay. Moving on to item 10, vote for closed session. So we will be going into closed session. And the only thing we will be doing, going into open session, is to adjourn. So Wisconsin statute 1985 sub 1 sub E, for the purpose of considering the expenditure of public funds whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, specifically sale of property. Vote for closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 1985 sub 1 sub F, for the purpose of considering personal history of students, specifically expulsions under policy 5530A. Motion is in order to go into closed session.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are in closed session, and we will only be going into open session to adjourn.